Hello, everybody. Good morning to the West Coast and good afternoon to the East Coast and in between. Welcome to Talent Smart EQ's very first LinkedIn Live event, Emotional Intelligence for Your Everyday Life. We'd love to hear where you are tuning in from. So in the chat, let us know where you're coming from. We are here today to talk about some really fun stuff that's going on in emotional intelligence. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Talent Smart EQ, what I will tell you is that we are the world's premier provider of emotional intelligence assessments, programming, and we've been in business this is our 20th year. And we are here today to talk about why team emotional intelligence is right for you and for your teams, quite frankly. We're going to be talking about the program that we have here at Talent Smart, as well as a very exciting thing, our brand new book that is about to release next Tuesday, Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Let me invite or introduce you information from you all. Let us know if you have any questions in the chat. Let us know any of that because we'd love to be able to answer some of the things that you have going on. I see people in Spokane, Washington, Dubai. I love it. Houston, and that's Josh just flew through Houston yesterday, by the way. Right. We see Los Gatos, California, Fort Worth. Welcome to everybody. Our other two guests, they are no stranger to Talent Smart. First of all, we have the founder of Talent Smart, also author of Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and the co-author of this particular book that we're going to be talking about today as well, Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0. That's Dr. Jean Greaves. You see her down there. And then also one of my peers, Director of Training, Josh Rosenthal, who has had his hands in helping to build the programs of Talent Smart, especially this team program, for quite a while. So we have the two experts of Team Emotional Intelligence right here with us. We are going to be giving, as I mentioned before, the book, 5 books out to 5 people. And I'm actually going to pull one name right out that I see. KC Reed in Fort Worth, Texas. You are our first winner of a Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. Madison is going to send that to you. So Madison, if you're going to go ahead and add your email address into your box square, KC Reed, if you would send Madison your information so she can send you a free book, we'd love for you to get the book. So congratulations to start off with. So I want to get things started. With the launch of the book, we're so excited about both the book and the program, but I want to first turn to Dr. Jean Greaves. First of all, Jean, welcome. You're the very first guest for here. I don't think I've introduced myself. I'm David Brzezowski, one of the directors of training here at Talent Smart, and I'll be your moderator for today and for the future of our LinkedIn Live programs as well. But Jean, first of all, what was the inspiration for creating the Emotional Intelligence for Teams programming back when this all started? Love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, it's really great to be here and to talk about this topic with everyone who's joined in. And you might be interested to learn that in the early 2000s, when emotional intelligence was really still a hot new concept from the mid-90s, there was a lot of trepidation and nervousness about the term because people thought maybe this is an inborn trait. And what if I find out that I have a low EQ? Does this just mean I'm going to struggle the rest of my life? And when people came to us to do some work, depending on the organization they were in, once in a while they were requesting us to create a little bit of safety for the people in the room. And we were aware that this idea of how emotions operate within a team had been researched for decades. So the concept wasn't new to us, but we knew that it wasn't as well known or people just weren't aware of it. So we decided that we would put together a half-day program so that for those teams and organizations that were stepping lightly into this topic of finding out about their individual EQ, they could come into the room and talk about how they were collectively working to manage their emotions. And once in a while, they would do the program on teams before they ever ventured into assessing and working on their individual EQ. So we prepared an assessment and a program for teams early around 2004 is I think when it launched.
Wow, and I find that amazing because we really have started seeing teams become so much more where people are focusing their attention. So Josh, I wanted to turn to you. You have really helped build the curriculum for Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and you have led a lot of the programs with clients as well as train the trainer. So from your perspective, I'd love to get a couple of takeaways that you've heard from clients directly about Team Emotional Intelligence.
Absolutely, and thank you again for having me. Welcome, everybody. Being in the room and working with teams, I think the first big takeaway that I've seen is that there is a team emotional intelligence. Yeah. It's actually a really big aha and an important one to really level set at this high level to say, hey, you know what? There is individual emotional intelligence. And yet, if you get a bunch of people together who are all high performing, it doesn't necessarily mean that the team is high performing. I like to think of it as almost like an NBA all-star team. Each individual player, right, is entirely proficient, probably the best athletes in the world. But then what happens when they get on the court? Nobody plays defense. They're not really jiving as a team. So this is the level at which I think people first achieve these ahas, saying, oh, wow, okay, we can work on something together at this higher level of emotional intelligence. Then more specifically, some really neat moments in our trainings are achieved when folks start to see their own emotional intelligence data at the team level. So now the team surrounds itself in hard data about how they perceive themselves, which matters. And at the end of the day, another big aha is really establishing comfort and confidence that one another has each other's backs. And that is paramount when working on a team. And as we all know, most of the work we do is in teams. And so what this helps them do is begin the process of engaging and dealing with issues rather than avoiding them, talking behind each other's backs and really sowing the seeds of dysfunction. So it really makes a team come out the other side healthier, more invigorated, and more confident.
Great takeaways. And I think it's really important then, Josh, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. So who really is right for this curriculum when you're thinking about teams? Because it is a little bit different than just every day anybody can join it. So who would you say this really speaks to the most?
Yeah, really two groups. One, an intact team that works together for a good amount of time. And there is no hard and fast rule, but we tend to think that if you work together with a team for about 6 months, you have a good sense of the team's norms, the team's culture maybe, and perhaps what types of emotions might get in the team's way. And now we can really have great discussions and great workshops around those types of things. The other type of team, in addition to an intact team, is a cross-functional team that works together with regularity. And what I mean by that is a team that can get together, say maybe a leadership team, right? Where the individuals have their own teams, but at this cross-functional level, they can still meaningfully engage in action planning, refreshing their norms, and work together after the session. So really, these two types of groups are perfect for this program.
That makes sense because what I'm hearing you say is we may not work directly all the time, but cross-functionally, if we get on a project, really might be helpful to really understand how we do interact with each other.
Precisely. Absolutely right.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And thanks for everybody still putting in the chat, in the comment area, who's coming in. And I'm going to give another book away to somebody who just did it. I can't wait to read the book. Well, LJ from Toronto, you're going to get a free one to actually read right away. So Madison, if you would make sure you collect LJ, if I'm saying it correctly, from Toronto, Viha. Congratulations to you for a book. And Jean, I want to turn to you about the book because I think that I found it really fascinating that you created, along with Josh and many others here at Talent Smart, the actual program first, and then the book came afterwards. I mean, a lot of times you think about business books being created and written, and then later on somebody creates a leadership program. So wondering how that happened, how the book came afterwards, and was that the plan all along, or really how did that come to fruition?
It was, let's see, The book was never the original plan.
Okay.
In around 2002, 2003, Travis Bradbury and I developed an assessment. Those were the original 28 questions centered around this 4 core skills for teams.
Okay.
We knew that that was based on an understanding of what we were reading in the research. And so we started collecting data, and it was really the training program that allowed teams to assess themselves in pre-work, come into a room, find out what they were already good at, what they were struggling with, and together to leave that session with some type of an action plan.
Gotcha.
But we've learned over the years, now decades, that we learn more from the working professionals that are putting this into action than any place else. And really around the mid 2000s, there was such a movement to embrace emotional intelligence that quite honestly, we got distracted with developing all of our strategies for individuals to work on their EQ. But all along the way, we were running team programs, or an intact team would come to work on their individual EQ, and inevitably in these sessions they would get to talking about how they were interacting as a team. So this is just being absorbed by osmosis by our trainers and by our staff and by our executive coaches. And now a full 20 years in, we realized we were sitting on this data. And so our assessments team really dug in to study what are the teams that are scoring really high doing? What are they saying and doing every day? And what are the teams that are struggling the most saying and doing every day? So with that, we thought, okay, it's time. We need to summarize what we understand about the social brain, which is a little different than about the emotional brain, and then share with the world what we've learned from all of you, all of the working professionals across industries. And by using that approach, I believe that it makes the set of strategies that you're going to encounter in this book a bit more universal. They've already tried and true. We weeded out the ones that we knew just weren't unique enough, or they didn't hold water in the literature. So in a weird way, you're going to read a very light, fun how-to book, but they've really been tested.
Excellent. So Jean, along with co-author Evan Watkins, were really the meat behind this entire program. But Josh, you were one of the contributors on this. What was that experience like to contribute to a book? Because I believe this was your first time to contribute to an actual book that is coming out on Tuesday next week.
Yes, next week. It was extraordinary. It was very, very fun. It was exciting. I also have to share, it was challenging. It's not easy to really bring this idea to life. And that was one of the goals for, Jean and Evan, the authors, and for us, a team of contributors, is to really make this an accessible read and make sure that people can find themselves in this material. And by that, I mean, they can read anecdotes that really relate to their lives and, I think breathe life into this idea of emotional intelligence for teams. And finally, I love the experience of working on a team, working on a Team EQ book, right?
Yeah.
Because and we really were experiencing and applying the Team EQ skills in order to work through this project together. So I think what the book is it's the product of not only, as you heard from Jean, decades worth of research, but also the product of a real team working through discomfort, challenges, questions, the unknown, and coming out the other side really confident and really comfortable in the work that they did. So the work that we did, right? So I just love that experience of, again, building our Team EQ skills while writing about Team EQ skills.
Yeah, and I love that takeaway. The other day, we got a chance to all get together and we talked about our experiences about being a contributor. I'm a contributor on the book as well, which I'm so proud of. But I don't think any of us knew some of the challenges and obstacles we were going through. And I think that's just such an important thing, that teams go through this. And sometimes they're not doing that interaction that team emotional intelligence can really help you. So, Jean, let me just ask you, so there's going to be a lot of people who grab the book and don't get one of our classes, which totally makes sense. How do you anticipate people who pick up the book to how they're going to actually use this for themselves?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there's probably two kinds of readers. One would be just a team member of any team.
Yeah.
The first couple of chapters really ground you in just what you need to know. There's a fun sort of life and death story at the beginning that hopefully you can relate to at some level. And it gives you a quick guide on the fact that you're going to encounter 53 unique strategies
Right.
across these four core skills. And I think a team member could skim the pages that summarize those strategies for each of the skills and think, which of these could help me show up and be a better team player? Or if you're encountering one particular challenge, you could skim and see, is there a strategy here that'll help me address that? And there is a set of book group discussion questions. So a
Yep.
team who's looking to kind of have a fun lunch session, or if you're planning a retreat, you could build in reading the book ahead of time and coming together around that. And I think the second reader is a team leader. And you could really absorb and skim this book with the idea of what moment is our team in? Are we getting to know each other? Have we been through everything, but we're kind of in a funk? Are we about to, face quite a bit of growth and change, and we're just really stressed out? And you could bring this resource to the group and encourage everybody to participate in seeing which kinds of strategies are helpful to them.
Yeah.
I think one of the more important things to share about the book is this book is not trying to tell you you have to learn how to be perfect and show up with perfection every day. The beauty about team EQ is you've got all the other team members that are there to pick you up when you just can't think of the insightful idea, or you find yourself droning on too long in a meeting.
Yeah.
So what are the ways that team members can respectfully and constructively help each other out on our worst days? And equally, just like in our own writing experience as a team, we could all get really enamored with what we're saying. And I
Right.
look
Right.
at you, David, I remember there was a strategy, you're like, yeah, I just don't buy it.
Right.
Well, thank you
True.
for
True.
saying
I
that.
was the very, very honest person that was doing that.
So whether you're divided or united, you
Yeah.
can fall into pitfalls. And I think there's something in it for a reader to go, aha, I'm just going to go put this into action, not even say anything to anybody that I was
Yeah.
reading a
Absolutely.
book. I'm just going to go
Mhm.
do it and see if some of this magic will begin to turn the mood or change the feeling of momentum around whatever you're dealing with.
Absolutely. And I think that for any of you that are on here listening, again, you can certainly pre-order the book. Madison is going to probably put this in the chat again, but we're going to give one to somebody who may not be on a team, because I love what she said in the comments. So for Nicole Galuskin, she would like one for her ex-fiance. So you know what, Nicole, we're going to give you a free book. I love that. And you have to let us know later on if maybe he had some changes in behavior from a team perspective. Josh, I want to turn to you, because now you're going to use this book in the actual team emotional
Mhm.
intelligence program. So
Mhm.
how do you see that a little different? Because now you're actually going to use it with an actual team. What do you see that use looking like?
Yeah, in addition to all the benefits that we just heard, that will transfer to a training program. In
Yeah.
addition, I think what's so cool about this book is that it is a guide. It's something that you can dip into, dip out of as you see fit in your Team EQ development. And what's great about that is you can do it together. So when we use this in a training session, it can be used in a variety of ways. First, I always like to think of Team EQ development as an ongoing process. So one
Right.
training event is not going to be the end of anything. It's really going to be the beginning. And so the book can be a wonderful resource to keep the learning going after a session. For example, in the book, there is space to go ahead and start to record what the team wants to do
Yeah.
vis-a-vis a development plan. There's a development plan section in the book, and you can write right in it. All right, everyone will own their own book, and you could just write your
Yeah.
own thoughts in terms of your team's development right in the book. So it's a wonderful resource in that regard. Then, of course, I think the mainstay of this resource after a session are all the strategies. So when we talk about strategies, whether it be individual EQ or team EQ, we talk about doing things with intention, with deliberateness and with care. And so it does require taking a step back and reviewing what are you doing and why. And the book will really help a team go through that. As Jean mentioned, all the strategy work that we did in writing really was about making this topic come to life. And so when a team uses the book after a session, they can read through these strategies, talk about what might resonate with them now, what might not, that's perfectly fine, and adopt new strategies to implement together. And also, there are many examples of Team EQ in action. So the book can also be a great pre-work read before a session to really prime folks onto this idea that team emotional intelligence might sound real lofty and might be a little bit tough to grasp. And yet the very first pages of the book share, as Jean mentioned as well, this life or death story of mountain climbers and how team emotional intelligence can help or hinder what a team is trying to do. So right from the opening pages, a group can already start to get their heads around what they're about to do in the training session. So it's really about keeping the learning going. And it can also be about priming them nicely to step into the training room to be really poised to get to work.
Yeah, and the other thing that we've certainly seen with Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book, and now the same with Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0, it's really built and written to be a resource book that I don't have to read cover to cover, especially if you go through the program. And I've always loved that aspect of how you created this so that I can jump into a section and just really look at what I need to look at. So it's a brilliant book when you look at it from a standpoint of resource material. And so, Jean, you and I were talking a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to throw this extra question in here is, so why do the program if I can just buy the book?
What happens in these programs is kind of a deep discussion. The team itself goes on a 4-hour journey. And what's fun about it is they get to observe a team that almost implodes and go through that team's journey and then begin to apply it to their own moment. Where are they at? And we provide opportunities for small breakout sessions to really dig deep in the assessment results. And so it's that safe space, as I mentioned before. Emotions are okay. Negative emotions are common within a team. So and it's not when I say emotions are negative emotions are okay, this program is not to make single people out and make them uncomfortable. It's allowing them to be real about what a team has gone through. And I don't see other ways that happens other than this structured experience where right at the right times, and believe you me, teams over the years have shared with us what they need in a session. So the fact that the rhythm of it works is in large part because we've had to figure that out with teams over the past 15 years or so. So why reinvent the wheel if you're looking for a wonderful experience for your team? This one delivers.
Great. I think that's a great way of saying it because this is created and it's helpful for that. And I'm not doing a sales pitch here, but if that is an interest to you, by all means, reach out to us because we can certainly share more about the program. There's a great question, though, in our comment section from Kimberly Wyatt. My team is small. Will this book help for small teams too? Josh or Jean, what do you think?
Well, Josh, why don't you share? What are some of the smaller
teams? You've actually been probably having the most experience with that. What do you think, Josh?
Without a doubt. It really matters less about the size of the team. It matters more about whether it's an intact or cross-functional team, how long the team works together before a session such as this, how long the team will be together after a session such as this. And then you can always ask yourself this question: will it be meaningful for this team, for my group, to engage in a unified plan of action moving forward? Or is our work so disparate that my goals are not going to align so much with your goals? And if the answer is, we are going to be working together and we have the same goals, then no matter the number, this is the right program and the right material for you.
Yeah,
that
I'll
makes sense.
mention
Yeah.
that the team in the book that we start with is a team
Yeah.
of 3.
Right.
And when you
Okay, there you
read the
go.
experience of this team of 3, you'll see how prominent the emotions are that influence them and what were some of the things they could have done. So yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think it really matters.
Great. And you're just getting that alignment in a team is so
Yeah.
helpful. So thank you for both that. Yeah, and Josh, you actually got a nice shout out in the comments. So we're going to give a book to Travis Mueller, who apparently went through a train the trainer session for one of our other programs. So Travis, we're going to send you a book and see how this actually adds into your experience as well. So Travis, thanks for joining us as well. Jean, you started talking a little bit about this earlier. So I wanted to make sure that we did pull back to speak about the difference between individual emotional intelligence
Mhm.
and team emotional intelligence, because I think that I don't want people to get the idea that they're the exact same skills. So could you give us kind of a high level look at what those differences look like?
Sure. Okay. So the universal understanding of individual EQ is how well you're managing yourself competently. That's called
Yeah,
personal competence, and it's made up of being self-aware and being able to self-manage. The other part is being socially competent, and that's your ability to read what's happening with somebody else and your ability to invest in and cultivate your relationships over time. Now, team emotional intelligence is something that the whole group is contributing to,
right.
observing the team's performance and the team's dynamic is really the focus. So the 4 core skills are, again, how well is the group managing the emotions that surface at different times?
Right.
It's not everyone all the time, but one person this day, the other person steps in the other day, or maybe everyone. How well the group is managing the emotions that surface within the group. That's
Yeah.
whether over email or say like on an interaction over Zoom or in a conference room or wherever you conduct your work. The third one is how well the team is investing in and managing the relationships within the team. So it's internal relationship management and then managing the relationships outside the team. That's the relationships with individuals who come and visit you, whether you're treating them honorably as guests and
Right.
welcoming them in, and how you're interacting with other teams over time. So it's dividing this relationship portion into this internal space and the external space that makes it a bit unique.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great clarification for that. There's another really great question in here from Susan De Lazaro. Can this work for teams that are forming or teams that have newer members? Thoughts on that? Josh, since you've been doing some of the classes, what do you think?
Absolutely. It's a great question because we get it a lot in terms of, well, what does the dynamic need to be for a team to step into a session? And
Yeah,
we've had wonderful success with teams that have new members. It's still important that there's a core group of people that can speak on their experience together, how emotions have surfaced, maybe gotten in their way, how relationships, as we just heard, internal and external relationships might
yeah,
have
yeah.
gotten in the way of the work that we need to do. So there still needs to be, I think, this core group that have been together for some
Hmm.
time, maybe 3 to 6 months. However, if there's a brand new member, it is excellent. It could be a great way to onboard that member to the team and get a fresh set of eyes to start to engage meaningfully in some of these conversations. And what better way to join a team than to immediately engage in this experience together? We haven't really mentioned this yet, and it probably is fairly evident, but the session itself is also very bonding. And let's not lose sight
Yeah,
of how important that
absolutely.
is, right? When you work on a team, it's really important to connect at a deeper level than just interactions sort of very quickly because work is fast, right? So, yes, absolutely, we can have new members on a team, and we can have a team that does have some turnover. And maybe that's one of the things we need to discuss and talk about how emotions and relationships affect that turnover.
Yeah, I love that explanation because my background besides Town Smart is in the corporate world. And so often teams are looking for team building experiences. And what a great way to introduce a team that has a combination of tenured people with some newer
Yeah.
people to really build that bond through a team emotional intelligence, whether it's discussing it through the book or or going through the program together to really help make that bond better. I was wondering, Josh, if you could maybe just give us, without all the super details, but kind of high level, what does one of our programs look like? I know it's a half a day, so it's a 4-hour program, but what are some of the highlights that anybody who might be interested, would that look like?
I'd love to. So really, the way I see a training program for the Team EQ session, it revolves around the emotional intelligence appraisal for teams assessment. And what that is at a high level is just an opportunity for the team to take a look at hard data that will reveal how the team members see the team. And that really matters, something that I mentioned at the front of our time together today. It really matters what perceptions individual members bring to the team. So the cornerstone to our session is to ground all discussions in those perceptions. And we do so through hard data, through this assessment. But to get there, we don't do it right away. It's a little bit too heavy of a workload for folks to jump right in with that kind of data. So to get there, we level set, of course, on first, what is Team EQ? What is this idea? And we don't want to approach this idea theoretically, nor as an abstract concept that folks need to really think about. We want folks to dive into experience team emotional intelligence. So we also take a look at different movie clips that highlight Team EQ in action, both high Team EQ and low Team EQ. That is to say, when a team is highly effective, we call that high Team EQ, right? They're firing all cylinders, almost, they're finishing each other's sentences. They don't even have to speak. They know what each other are thinking, and they really get along well, and their work is productive. And then low Team EQ, it's important also to see examples of that. The idea of watching these movie clips in session is, of course, very fun and lively and engaging, but also it's to train the eye to see team emotional intelligence in action. And once that eye is so trained, they're able to see it in their everyday team work. So it works very, very well. So once we sort of level set on what we're after, we take a look at the team's own data. Then we have an opportunity as a group to work through in real time, what do we need to work on moving forward? And we call that our action plan or development plan. And the team starts to make some agreements in the session that they think will work quite well for this group. Maybe there are things that they are already doing. That's great. So they continue to polish those things. Maybe it's something they never tried before. Great. Jump right in and try something new. No problem. One of the things that we also want to establish is how can team members hold one another accountable for following through on what they say they're going to do, right? Reliability is so important when working on a team. And so what we do before the session is over is we have a very deep discussion about team norms. And team norms is just a simple way of addressing how the team wants to interact and how those interactions will yield the best work, right? And so it's important to get on the same page with what are our team norms, how do we want to hold ourselves accountable, and really how do we want to enforce these norms lightly, right? So when we see a team member, say, violate a team norm, we don't want to punish or alienate the team member. We want to support the team member and call it to everyone's attention by saying, hey, here we have a great example. And we want to share that it's okay to get tripped up. It's okay to even fail. So part and parcel, I think, to high team EQ is to provide safety nets for team members to try new things, to get out there, to be creative, and to fail. Because let's face it, no one wants to be creative if you're not allowed to fail. Right. So at a high level, those are some of the things that we're after in this, tight half-day, 4-hour training session.
Well, and I love that you share what the takeaways are, because I think that's so important to know that a team will walk out with some specific to-dos and that will help them move forward. I know, Gene, there's been a couple questions in the comment section from LJ, who won one of our books earlier. Did you want to kind of address that and just help us with what LJ is going through?
Yeah, certainly. So within our society's unspoken norms, there's just this general idea that, you should be polite and let people speak. But in her particular or their particular team, there's one member who's not noticing and talking too long. And perhaps the style of talking is sending this unspoken message that is mentioned here, that now everybody's dreading it when that team member is speaking, and now they're sending around chats. Those now, your team isn't low team EQ forever, but these are low team EQ moments, right? They're starting to manage you rather than you getting ahead of them and managing, letting that not drive the team dynamic. So there are quite a few strategies you can begin, peeking through the book and looking for. One of them is ensuring that everyone gets a chance to speak. And how do you do that without breaking this being impolite or interrupting? But this is where other team members sitting around the table can find a pause and say, I think we need to let a chance for a couple of other ideas to be shared here. Phrases that don't say, hey, you're talking too much, so let somebody else speak. That's the one that sort of is, hey, you're hurting us, so I'm going to hurt you back publicly. But thinking up phrases to ensure that other team members are getting a chance to speak. That doesn't necessarily mean this particular team member is going to finally recognize the bad habit. Oftentimes, someone who is over speaking and in a way that's making colleagues and peers feel like they're being spoken down to, that person's motive is rarely to put other people in their place. Usually what you find out about someone who's doing that is almost that they're managing their own fear of not being valued, and somehow they're finding their comfort space in being an expert, but they're overusing it. So so this team, if you nestle into chatting around the person, now you have good guys and bad guys, and you're perpetuating a piece. One thing I think you'll be fascinated to hear is that the most predominant comment in our team assessments is when a team member has to hear the complaints about other team members. Now, we all do it. We all listen to our coworkers, but there's a private wish that you could circle back around and begin addressing what to do about it. So for this particular team, there's a whole set of strategies for making sure that you can sort of take a break or find other voices, or making sure everyone is heard. So I would suggest that you skim through that and spread it around amongst multiple team members.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. LJ, hopefully that helped you out as well, with at least that part of the puzzle. I promised 5 books, right? So I just was looking to see who came in. What my very favorite city in the whole world is represented here. So I would love to be able to give a free book to Carol Fraser from New York City. So Carol, if you would make sure you let Madison know how she can get a hold of you. And I want time for one more question here, Jean, and I wanted to pose it back to you.
Okay.
This is I think your 3rd book, or maybe it's your 30th. I'm not sure, but wondering where it fits in your illustrious career. I know it's kind of like asking you who's your favorite child, but really, where's this fit in your career, and any kind of call outs you'd love to share?
Oh, sure. This is the 3rd book on this topic of emotional intelligence, but the 4th book overall. We have one on leadership. It's Leadership 2.0. I'll say that it gives me closure, because if you might imagine, I've been watching and seeing this data and these experiences and these conversations in the hallways, and I somehow was feeling, if this doesn't get out into the hands of others, we won't have done, the most complete job on EQ. And I'll tell you, when I started searching around what other books existed on teams, because you don't want to write a book that's duplicative of one that's already been written, I was actually surprised how few books there are on the actual team dynamics that people face. There's quite a bit on how to lead teams. So that's when I realized, wait, this really does need to get out there in the world. So it gives me closure. That's where it fits in. And I have to just thank the contributor team, obviously Evan, who was right there with me. Sue DeLazaro helped identify our conceptual model for explaining it. I have to thank you, Madison, and Kate Barsby, our marketing team, because as a writer, we tend to be introverts. And I'll tell you, if it weren't for Kate and Madison and Weaving Influence, the team at Weaving Influence, I don't think this book would have seen the light of day.
Right.
So I so appreciate that. And I appreciate the team at Talent Smart. We call ourselves Talent Smarties, who are having day-to-day conversations with team leaders and team members who are facing, this struggle, and they're not sure exactly what resource is going to help them. So for all of you who are about to discover this, we appreciate you being curious about this new topic.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask Madison to just plop into the comment one more time where you can pre-order your Team Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. And I do want to remind you that we are going to be back the 4th Thursday of every month, starting back in July, with a brand new topic of emotional intelligence for your everyday life. So we're going to skip June so we can kind of get some learnings from this. Love to hear what you want to hear more of, by the way. In July, great topic. We're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and policing. So in the law enforcement world, we have been doing some great work there. And I think that it's important for everybody to understand where that does fit in too. So please connect with us here at Talent Smart. Go to our website if you want more information. I want to thank Madison for our tech guru. Thank you for everything you did on the backside. Dr. Jean, always a pleasure to be with you. And Josh, thanks so much for joining us as well. And I hope that you all got something from today. Enjoy the book if you were one of the recipients. And otherwise, you can certainly go ahead and pre-order your book. And I would just say to you all, just remember that emotional intelligence is for your everyday life. And we will see you the next time. Thanks.